You're listening to the Health and Happiness Podcast with Travis Kemper and
Lauren Maxwell. Each episode, we share easy-to-implement strategies to improve your health, happiness, and overall quality of life. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Zig Ziglar. How's it going, Travis? What's been new? It's been about a week since I last talked to you.
It's going well. We rented out both of our houses and we got more organized in our own house. I planned a trip to Tahoe. And I've been working on my pull-ups. Just a couple of weeks, I decided that I wanted to get back to being able to do a lot more pull-ups than I can currently do. So I started with 50 a day, 3 times a week, then went 60 last week. And then this week I went up to 75 3 times a week.
Wow.
So I'm working towards 100 and my real goal is to get 100 every day, but we'll see if my body can take that. So I just bought a pull-up bar.
So many pull-ups. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I just bought a pull-up bar for the basement. Now that I have a basement and I can hook it up to my joists for the floor above.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah,
having a pull-up bar is really fun.
It makes it a lot easier.
To work on that goal? Yeah.
Yeah.
A heck of a lot easier.
Right.
I bet it feels good to be more organized in your house too.
It does. It does. We're getting there. It's still a mess in my office, but we're getting there.
You can't tell. Looks great to me.
I know. That's because it's all right over there.
It's the beauty of having a small screen on a camera.
That's right. You can't see what my life is really like. How's your life going, Lauren?
It's been going good. We're enjoying the summer weather that we're having.
It's so hot.
It is hot, but I'm also just like enjoying being out in the sun. I don't know. Maybe that's the Phoenician in me. I grew up in hot sun all the time. So this still feels nice, I guess. I started doing some of my summer groups for work, which is always like the highlight of the summer because we just get to put on a bunch of different groups and get all the kids that we're working with together. So it's nice, like socialization, as well as just like a breakup of what we normally do for therapy. Like now we're going to playgrounds and getting groups at playgrounds and gymnastics gyms and stuff like that. It's just really fun. I love summer groups.
Awesome.
Yeah. I also watched the Friends reunion with my friend Jess. It was so good. I've watched Friends probably 4 or 5 times all the way through all the seasons, every episode. Like just my whole life. That's my favorite show in the whole world. So having the reunion was like a big, exciting deal. And it was so much fun to watch. And then yesterday we took Keely to Lake Mary, which is like 15 minutes away from where we live. And she learned how to swim and it was super fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is there any water in Lake Mary? Because when I lived there, it was kind of like Swamp Mary.
Well, Lower Lake Mary has no water, but Upper Lake Mary has like enough for people to go like wakeboarding and boating. And yeah. So that's obviously where we go. Upper Lake Mary. Yeah.
Keely's swimming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So what are we going to talk about today, Travis?
Well, a couple weeks back, you had said something. I don't even remember what we were talking about.
We were talking.
Oh, meditation.
We were talking about meditation.
And you had said how hard it is. And I said, well, everything's hard when you first start, Lauren. And that's what I want to talk about today, because everything is hard when you first start.
Everything is hard.
I don't think I've ever been good at anything that I first started.
Yeah.
But you can't get better at it if you don't start at the bottom.
Exactly.
So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Found a Forbes article that just summarized, why it's tough for people to start new tasks and things like that, or some of the reasons at least. And they said the most difficult thing about starting something new is starting something new.
Seems simple.
Yeah, it does seem simple. But change in general for most people is hard and scary, and nobody wants to fail. You don't want to look like a failure and you don't want to look silly. I don't think I have had this a whole lot in my life, but I do remember the first time I did a yoga class. thinking that I was going to look like a fool, and also dancing. If you ever see me dancing, I will have a huge smile on my face. And it is not because I'm having super fun, a super amount of fun. I don't know what I'm saying. It is because I am incredibly uncomfortable. And when I'm incredibly uncomfortable, I either smile or I laugh or both.
I think that's usually my go-to as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird when people yell at you and you start laughing in their face.
Yeah.
Or when your wife's crying.
Oh.
Yeah. I've gotten better, but it's still
Emotions are
happens.
hard. Yeah.
Anyway, because you don't want to fail and you don't want to look silly, and you're a little scared, it's easy to convince yourself that, it's easy to make any excuse. You don't have the money, you don't have the staff if you're doing something new in business. You don't have the time off, whatever. You can make all of these excuses. The gym's too far away for, your health. Whatever. Life gets in the way. Our to-do lists are long, and then we blame we don't have the time to do these things. And I find personally that when I tell people that I'm going to try something new, they often will scare me to try and get me not to. And I totally don't listen to this anymore because I think we've talked before. Going against the grain has served me extremely well in my life. But several things in the last, 6-7 years since I moved to Arizona, which that was one. People told me not to move to Arizona from Pennsylvania, so we could use that one. But also travel PT is another one. If you talk to any of the professors that we learned under, they all pretty much had the same response. And it was like, nope, wait until you get some experience. Which is, maybe that's good for people that are less confident than me. But for me, I didn't need experience. I went out there and did great.
Yeah, you got a lot of experience doing that. Like, you got so much more experience than I think a lot of our classmates did, because you got to try a whole bunch of new different things.
Yeah, well, that, and also, they would talk about the mentorship and stuff like that. And what I found is that in my first year of working, I probably had at least as much, if not more, mentorship than the median in our class.
Yeah.
Especially if they went into outpatient ortho. My guess is you got plenty.
I got a lot, yeah. But I also jumped into, I think, the other part of PT that you don't have experience in. Like, I had no experience in peds. So I got a lot of mentorship because I had an internship, but other than that, like, we did what, like half a semester of pediatrics? I don't know. It was like barely anything.
Yeah. Well, also, though, what I also found is that therapists in general, whether it's speech, occupational, or physical therapists, are freaking awesome. And if you ask them the question, they love helping you. So that's cool about our profession in general. It's definitely not like an eat the young. That is definitely not. Yeah, nurses say that a lot. Yeah, definitely not a thing in therapy, at least not that I've encountered in 5 states of work now. So another thing was house hacking. Most people probably don't know what that is, but basically we buy, houses that, like our house here has a studio apartment attached to it that helps us control our living expenses, because we live in a super, super expensive cost of living place. So that allows us to live here and not feel like we're kind of screwing ourselves in a way. And when you tell people that you're going to have tenants, they're like, oh my gosh, my Uncle Bob had a rental property and he lost everything. And now at this point, this is how I made it through grad school, and now I'm doing it through life. I think I've had 20 tenants by now, or I will in 2 weeks when my new ones move in.
Wow.
So yeah, and I've had 2 bad ones because most people are pretty decent, and you can screen for the bad things.
Right.
Like I would never rent to somebody like you.
Terrible.
Just kidding. Other ones, like even more simply, just working through college and then especially working through grad school. They told us not to get jobs in grad school. And I was like, well,
yeah,
how am I
I
going to pay
remember
for that? Yeah. And I was like, how am I going to pay for grad school?
How do you expect anybody to pay for grad school? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, like I'm not financing my life for 3 years. So it's like I'm gonna work whether you tell me I can or not. So and that was a great experience through undergrad and through grad school, and I came out with almost no debt. So it worked out really well. So anyway, so that's one of the things that I've noticed that was not on the Forbes paper, but is that people often try and scare you. And I don't really know why, Lauren.
Well, I feel like that has a lot to do with the negativity bias, which is basically like our tendency to register negative stimuli more readily, but also to dwell on those thoughts. So, like, if a person had a bad experience, that's sticking in their brain way more than any positive experience they had. It's just like very asymmetrical balance in your brain. And so that's probably why that's the first thing they recall when you're telling them, oh, I'm going to do this thing. And then they're like, here, let me tell you all the things that are terrible about it. Like, this is why you shouldn't do it, because that's what stuck with them. Even if they had, like, what if, that one person had one bad tenant, but like 50 positive ones, but he recalled the like one negative one because that one stuck with him. It's just a really weird bias that our brains have. And I'm not totally sure why we have that bias, but
I don't know, but we will talk about that more in a future episode because we need to talk about how the news preys on that bias to get you to keep watching because you'll pay attention to the negativity. Anyway, so back to starting new tasks. There's this 10,000 hour theory. It's the theory of becoming an expert in any field. To become an expert, you need 10,000 hours of experience.
Right. That's a lot of hours. That feels intimidating.
That's a lot of hours, but you're not gonna, I don't want to be an expert in most things, right? I want to be good at a lot of things. I want a lot of variety in my life, and I want to be competent in a lot of things because being an adult, you better be competent in a lot of things because otherwise you're going to get yourself in trouble with whatever, finances or parenting or work or something, right?
Right.
It's really hard to focus on one thing. So it may take 10,000 hours to become an expert, but it only takes approximately 20 hours, according to John Kaufman's research. Easy for me to say. To become pretty good from knowing nothing about something.
That's way more doable than 10,000 hours.
Right. 20 hours is like half an hour a day for what, 10 days?
Yeah.
Did I do that math right?
I don't know. Math is hard.
Didn't. I definitely didn't. How about half an hour a day for 40 days?
There you go.
Still, that's barely over a month.
Yeah, that's
pretty good.
Super doable. And like, I feel like because that 10,000 hours is such a prevalent thing, like you hear that all the time, it takes 10,000 hours, 10,000 hours. Well, like how intimidating is that to hear when you're thinking about starting something new? But like you said, Travis, it like, we don't necessarily need to be an expert. And that's what that 10,000 hours is relating to. Like, we just want to be kind of good at something to be able to do it, like 20 hours is very doable and I feel like that takes so much less pressure. Oh man, we're struggling with words. Pressure off of people to be like, oh, I could be pretty good at that if I just like tried for 20 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. And now with YouTube University, which we've talked about, you can learn anything from the comfort of your home and you don't have to pay $1.
Yeah, you can learn so many things.
Yeah.
We learned how to podcast from like Google.
That's right. I don't even know if we're at 20 hours yet.
I know. Maybe we're not good yet, but stick around. We're going to get pretty good soon.
It's true, but we might be heading towards the being pretty good.
Yeah. I'll take it.
So John Kaufman, in his research article, outlines the path to learning as follows. So he says, deconstruct whatever you want to learn, decide what you actually want to be able to do, learn enough to self-correct, which is basically being able to say, oh, I screwed up there.
That wasn't right.
Right. Remove the practice barriers, the distractions like the internet, the phone. Remember, I said delete social media?
TikTok.
Delete social media off your phone. It will help you, I promise. And practice at least 20 hours.
Yeah, and he has a whole TED talk on this, which we can also post in our description so you guys can watch it if you're interested in watching it. There is another research article that we found from Johns Hopkins that I thought was really interesting because of the way that it explained how we learn and how we learn really more efficiently, which I think is kind of surprising, or maybe surprising if you haven't studied this stuff before. So Johns Hopkins found that if you practice a slightly modified version of a task you want to master, you actually learn more and faster than if you keep practicing the exact same thing over and over and over again. So the example that they used to like put this into a context in their article is, for example, if you wanted to get better at shooting free throws in basketball, I think all of us would immediately be like, okay, well, I have to stand this far away at the, I don't know basketball, but this far away at this line and like shoot from this place over and over and over again, right? Like that's how I'm going to learn how to do a free throw, is by doing a free throw.
There's literally a free throw line.
There you go. You stand at the free throw line. Thank you. I sports, whatever. But they said that in like, yes, that will help you learn how to do a free throw. Travis is just going to keep laughing at my like ineptitude at sports. Anyway, so yes, like standing at the free throw line and practicing shooting free throws will get you better at shooting free throws. But according to this research, it's actually going to get you there faster if you modify things. So like if you don't stand at the free throw line, if like one time you stand a few inches closer, next time you stand a few inches to the side, next time you use a heavier ball or a lighter ball, those actually help you learn faster than just practicing in that same spot. They did say that there has to be like a wait time between your practice sessions, so at least 6 hours, because that's the like, I think that's what they found as the amount that you have to wait at least for new memories to reconsolidate. And that's like what this is all about, is new memories reconsolidating. And the conditions can't vary more than slightly, so it has to be very slight changes, not like I'm going to stand at the like right under the net or at the opposite side of the court. Like that's too big of a change. It has to be small. But I thought that was so fascinating that I feel like that's like, that feels icky to change things. I don't know. That's when I learned about how to learn. It felt awful because I was like, this isn't what I was taught to do from a really early age. And like, so it feels icky to like change it up because is this really going to work? But it actually does. Like it actually works.
I use this in physical therapy all the time. I've told you many times, sit to stands are my favorite thing. Walking is another one. Just changing the surface that you're walking on, even if it's just carpet to tile, is a big difference for somebody that's struggling to walk.
Yeah.
And sit to stands, you just go from chair to chair to chair, right? So each chair is a little bit different, and just move around. And yeah, it's supposed to help you learn faster. I've never done a study with my patients and seen who learns the fastest, but usually it's who does the homework most.
That's very true. I remember, I mean, just in PT school, like I had a whole specific way of studying that I'd had for my whole life, which was just like pound the information until it sticks in your brain. And then in PT school, we learned how to learn, which was like do it until you feel like maybe you got it and then stop and switch. switch your topic.
Yeah, the blocked practice.
The blocked or what, yeah, whatever it was. And I remember
it was blocked.
I was like, I'm gonna do this for our big like boards. And I'd never studied that way in my life before, but I did it for our boards, like where I was gonna get my license from. And it was the most terrifying feeling to be like, I'm just putting full faith in research and like hope that I'm going to pass this test and get my license, because I have never done this before. And I passed first time and got my license. So it works.
Yeah, that was brave. It's also incredibly frustrating to study like that.
Oh, it's awful. It feels icky. It feels very icky.
It does. So while we're talking about learning and picking up new tasks, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right?
Or can you?
I don't know. So let's find out. So there was a 2015 study that measured associative learning and motor learning. Motor learning is simply executing movements more quickly and accurately after practice. So that would be like playing tennis would be a good example, or shooting your free throws in basketball. And then associative learning, associative binding is like linking multiple units of information together. So if this, then this, because of this, that would be associative binding. And there's been a lot of studies apparently that have shown that associative binding when we get older is not as strong as when we were young. However, this 2015 randomized control trial compared older and younger people. The younger group, the median age was 24, and the older group, the median age was 66, so just after retirement age. And the researchers predicted, because of the research that had come before it, that the younger people would do better, but they didn't. There were no statistical differences between the two groups for either associative binding or motor learning in these tasks.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you are 66, 70, it doesn't matter. You can still learn. I teach people things every day.
That myth is busted.
That's right. That's right. So, Lauren, how do you make learning less daunting?
And this goes back to something I think we've talked about quite a bit on this podcast, but I don't think you can say it too many times. I think the way to make things feel less daunting is you begin by just taking one small step, making one small change, one small step towards your goal, whatever it is, and then pause and reflect and see what happens. And you can get one of two reactions, right? You get a positive reaction, which then take another small step if you get a positive reaction. If you get a negative reaction, well, I guess it depends on, the negativity bias and whether you buy into that negative reaction or whatnot. But if there's a negative outcome, I guess, that comes from it, stop and think about, like, why did I get that outcome? Let's learn something from it, because you'll always learn something from it. And then build on that learning and take another small step and do the same thing over and over and over again. Act, learn, build, repeat. I feel like I've done a lot of this throughout a lot of my life. Maybe not necessarily even like starting something new, but way back when I was like in 7th grade, I remember like being, I don't know, super self-conscious. Like I think a lot of us were at that age, maybe not Travis. Oh yeah, okay, Travis was.
For sure.
But I remember like I don't know, I eventually just got really tired of being like everybody else, and I decided I wanted to like embrace being a weirdo. And for me, that meant, like, this might seem totally off topic, but this really framed like how I've moved on for my entire life. And it started here. So I started, like, there was one day in 7th grade where I decided, all right, I'm going to be a weirdo. I'm going to embrace being different. Like, I don't care. I dressed up like a pirate and went to school. No lie. I dressed like a pirate. Like I had a full like outfit, and I went to school. And I was like, this is it. But I was like sitting, I mean, I was seventh grade. So I was like sitting in the back of my mom's car. And I was like, what the heck am I doing? Like, I can't get out of the car. What are people going to say? Like, people are going to look at me like I'm a freak. And then I remember like the whole thought process that happened. And my literal like thought to myself was, the first step out of the car is the hardest. And then like once everybody sees you, like it's over and you can just move through the day like you're a normal human being or a weirdo. And so I just like ever since then, like that first step is the hardest. Just take that first step. And it really like everybody looked at me like I was nuts. And like, yeah, that was weird and uncomfortable. But then as soon as I like took my second step, I was like, everybody already saw me, like it's already over, the hard part's already done. And I just went through the rest of my day, and like then I was just that weirdo, and like that was fine. But that is a like mental concept, mentality, I don't know, mindset that I've had since seventh grade, where like, yeah, if something's scary, it's scary, but really it's the first step that's the scariest. And as long as you have the confidence to take that first step, everything after that is just another step. You already did the hard one.
Right. And as long as you learn from your missteps, you're good. Also, I'm super disappointed that you didn't dress like a pirate in PT school.
I feel like I had already embraced my weirdness. I was a little more normal in PT school. A little.
A little, maybe. Anyway, you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. Well, what can we add as a challenge this week?
Well, that's pretty easy. What is something that you have been wanting to do and you have been scared or just procrastinating or whatever? So a hobby, maybe you wanted to learn guitar, maybe you wanted to start exercising, maybe you wanted to, I don't know, buy a crock pot so you can meal prep. Something, anything, it doesn't matter what has been on your mind. I'm sure everybody has something on their mind that they have wanted to do. Just break it down into small steps and take the first step and move towards that something that you want to do, and see what happens and see how it's not so scary after you take that small step.
I love it. Perfect.
Yeah. And we will see you next week with a new topic.
Who knows what it'll be?
Wait, no, we talked about what it's going to be. We're going to talk about this older people thing because it really bothers me that people say, oh, I'm just getting old, blah, blah, blah. We're going to debunk all that crap. And just prove to you that old people can do anything they want.
That's right.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and are getting benefits from our content.
If your life is improving in part due to the information in this podcast, we would greatly appreciate you sharing the episode with your family and friends on social media and leaving us a review so we can continue to reach more people and improve the health and happiness of the community at large.
Thanks again, and we will see you next week for another episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast.